The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. President Biden delivers his State of the Union speech tonight, and I hope he goes off script and does a little riffing. He's so good at it, as is his Vice President, Kamala Harris. She did it the other day, reminding people.
Because as we all know, elections matter. Okay. And when folks vote, they order what they want, and in this case, they got what they asked for.
Are we supposed to clap?
I went off script a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, she is just a breath of fresh air, isn't she?
Wow, that's embarrassing.
It's time to do the things that we do, and that time is every day, or words to that effect. And that time for us now is to invite Joy Pullman to join us. She's the executive editor at the Federalist, thefederalist.com. Joy, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Love your nice peppy intro music there, helping me get awake this morning.
There you go. Not to mention Kamala Harris. You know, she'll get you up and tapping your toe, huh?
Definitely would get a scrape down my back. That's
yeah.
So like watching a horror film.
So what can we expect? What can we expect from Joe Biden tonight? Clearly, COVID victory is one, and some stern talk in the direction of Putin would be two. What else?
It's actually really hard to say because I really don't know how the president can spin his last year of presidency in any possibly positive way. I mean, he's obviously going to have to try, but I mean, it's impossible to think of how he could be able to do that without just going straight on the tissue of lies here.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't gone great, but I mean, I guess he could say, you know, we passed that the $1 trillion worth of spending on infrastructure. We provided some COVID relief that helped people get through the difficult time and come out of it. And now we're coming out of it. Now, again, vigilance is required, but we're coming out of it. I assume you'll hear some of those pat answers because, as we know from this polling memo that's out from Biden's pollster, it's time for Democrats to get on the side of the people. The people worried about the COVID's impact on the economy more so than worried about being infected with COVID. And to the extent that the Democrats don't is to the extent they get destroyed in November.
Right. So I would actually expect probably that the speech is going to be designed to help boost all of those really abysmal polling numbers that the president has and that they're looking at probably even worse internally. And that's the reason, for example, that, you know, you see that for the first time after, you know, years sanctioning Republicans in Congress on the mask and vaccine issue, finally for the State of the Union, all of a sudden, magically, they're not needed for safety anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
convenient how that's politically, you know, it just happens to time with political needs of Democrats.
I mean, California, Oregon, Washington State all dropped their indoor mask mandates, not only for, you know, regular people, but also at schools. So everything's lined up to take place. And this morning in Washington, D.C., they dropped their indoor mask mandate so that lawmakers can be unmasked during his State of the Union.
Correct. Well, the interesting thing about that is in Washington, D.C., the children are still, last I heard, required to be masked in schools. So again, it's very clear through all the policies that COVID for Democrats is not about science, as they claim. It is about politics.
Now, do you think Nancy Pelosi will rip up the speech behind President Biden like she did, remember, last time with Trump?
Well, there has been some speculation among my colleagues about whether some of the far leftists, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, will make some pretense of disagreeing with Biden in order to continue lying to people about what a moderate he is, even though basically all of Biden's legislative agenda is completely captured by the extremist wing of the party represented by those far left justice, so-called Democrats.
So among the failures, probably at the top of the list, although it's not much talked about inside the Beltway at present or ever with the Democrat in the White House, and that is border security. Do you think he just ignores that altogether, doesn't address it, or he tries to address it in some meaningful way. I don't know what that would be, but yeah. Do you just ignore something like that and hope that people don't notice?
Question.
I mean, that's been pretty much Biden's policy so far, going so far as to extend to literally, late night flights bringing in people from the border, foreigners that we know. I mean, we have reports from people inside the services. These people are not extensively vetted. Many of them are international crime cartel members being passed off as unaccompanied minors. We just published insider information about that. So probably most likely I would expect the Biden to ignore that as he's been doing. And the interesting thing is, again, the security theater here during the State of the Union, there will again be barricades. There will be a wall around the Capitol against the Americans coming to protest COVID regulations with the trucker convoy, but of course never any wall put up on our border for people we don't know being flown across the country by the president.
Of course, you have to save democracy from the people. There's no question.
And aren't like 700 National Guardsmen that are unarmed going to be around the perimeter?
Yes, that's the plan.
So here's something else. Here's something too. This, if against the backdrop of runaway inflation and violent crime bedeviling big cities, and the lawlessness at the southern border, and war in the heart of Europe, if a Republican president or Republican Congress moved legislation on abortion, there would be a hue and cry about tone deafness. I have no doubt. But that's exactly what the left is doing. This, as my friend Brian Birch says, which should be aptly titled the Abortion on Demand Until Birth Act, which is backed by Schumer and Pelosi, and they're intent on moving it. It's called the Women's Health Protection Act, actually. It goes way beyond Roe v. Wade. The legislation would nullify all state laws restricting abortion, require healthcare workers to perform abortions, and provide direct federal taxpayer funding for all abortions for any reason. It would also preemptively invalidate all future state-level legislation protecting the unborn. So this is obviously in anticipation of Roe v. Wade being overturned by the Supreme Court. It'd be very interesting to me if he makes mention of this and tries to rally the left for this. Do you see this as something that's going to be part of their menu of offerings for the fall, that this is a way for them to not have to talk about the ugliness of the performance in the international arena, their performance with respect to the economy? This is a way to focus people on an issue that Republicans many of them tend to run from, and this is something we can run to and tell suburban women to run to?
Right. That is, basically, Democrats, as we all know, they win by dividing so they can conquer, right? So they pit Americans against each other into all these different made-up little manufactured identity groups. And then they whip them up into a frenzy about, this or that, claimed evil thing that's, supposedly happening that makes them angry enough to hopefully get out there and vote for them. So of course, all the culture war issues tend to be those sorts of things for Democrats, including what is euphemistically called, women's health care. Now, as a woman and a mother, I deeply object to the idea that, it is good for women to murder their own children. That's deeply offensive to me, the idea that I would be attracted as a woman to that. And we know that the majority of women really actually, want strict limits on abortion, and many people in the pro-life movement, if not the majority, since, I'm around it a lot, are women. So again, this is an issue of optics over substance, and that seems to be really all that our ruling class can do for us right now. They get on TV, regardless of party, they pontificate about this, that, or the other, while continuing to get their paychecks, but doing nothing to actually make things better for the American people, and that's what I expect out of Biden tonight.
And the Republicans, do they walk into a trap if they walk away from these cultural issues rather than, as we saw over the last year, and it continues, leaning into them beyond COVID restrictions and into curriculum matters at the K through 12 level, and including potentially a Supreme Court decision that could, in part, frame the November election?
I mean, people vote for Republicans in order to get something from them, just like people vote for Democrats in order to get something from them. The only difference is that Republicans apparently don't believe in doing things for their voters as a party. And while Democrats, do bring out the bacon, that's why they propose all these constant welfare and spending programs aimed at all the special interests that they've congealed to support them. We've seen from, for example, Ron DeSantis in Florida, President Trump formerly leaning into not just rhetoric, in these social issues, but also legitimately making accomplishments on voters' behalf it energizes voters. It appeals to people across the island who are independents. And right now we know that a lot of people are really, really upset with Democrats' overreach on these fronts, such as, especially as you mentioned, the systematic racism that Democrats are embedding in public education instruction. There are a lot of people who vote Democrat who are independents who do not believe that, children should be segregated according to their skin color and made to judge each other based on that. So, that is an opportunity for, obviously, for anyone, Republican, Democrat, Independent, to reach out and say, this is ridiculous, this is un-American. It should be an easy sell, right? We're talking about institutional racism. And that's, just one issue where, these are almost gimmies, right? And too often Republicans run away from them. But if they lean into them, and again, not just rhetorically, but with effective policies that deliver for people, that is, it's win, 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 win. If Republicans really wanted to win, that is exactly what they would do. That's called effective governance.
She is Joy Pullman, executive editor of The Federalist, thefederalist.com, and check out her latest column. To Americans who voted for Joe Biden, the Americans that voted for Joe Biden owe the rest of us an apology. I don't think you really expect it, but the point is well taken. Thanks for joining us, Joy. We appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.
And thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
This is Captain Neil Hansen. I began my aviation career as a pilot for Teamster boss Jimmy Hoffa, but the pinnacle of my time in the sky was the 11 years I spent in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War era as a captain for Air America, the CIA's secret airline. Flying risky missions was a dream job, but when I returned to the U.S., my flight plan veered off course. Flight, an Air America pilot story of adventure, descent, and redemption, is my story. A historical narrative about flying for the world's most shot-at airline. Available in paperback and Kindle, and now an audiobook from Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. Flight, an Air America pilot story of adventure, descent, and redemption.
40 days up to 40 pounds. Say it with me. 40 days up to 40 pounds. That's how much you could lose when you join NJ Diet, because NJ Diet only takes 40 days to lose 20 to 40 plus pounds. Since NJ Diet is a contractually guaranteed money-back program, you have absolutely nothing to worry about.